our episode about being in business for 10 years.
It's our 10-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
What?
So we opened up
What a
the
wild
therapy
ride.
group, which was originally called the Westchester Therapy Group 10 years ago.
June 1st, 2014, we signed our lease.
Yeah.
We actually missed our anniversary because we were busy.
Yeah. We're skipping the intro question today. There's too much other good stuff to talk about. We got no time to get through it. But one, happy anniversary. I love you.
I love you. Honestly, this is the most beautiful relationship. We have had a baby together.
Somebody said, in what ways have your lives been enriched by knowing each other?
In what ways have they not been enriched by knowing each other?
Okay. So one, we have this beautiful business together, but one of the beautiful things about our business is our relationship.
Yes.
Right? Like that you and I feel like so much of who I am now is from you.
Me too. I'm going to cry this entire episode.
You are. You came to me on your wedding day. Jen came up to me and said,
I was so drunk.
You understand that you are one of the most significant female relationships of my entire life.
It's true. It's so true.
Yeah, everything we are from each other.
I mean, it's
right? like it's kind of crazy.
You know, like we have other incredible relationships in our lives, but like you don't build something with someone. And the amount of like self-work that it takes, I think, to build something with someone. I mean, I really feel, I don't have a child, but my sense is that it's like having a child is like you're like growing something together. Yeah. And I think, part of the reason, like part of the thing that makes me feel so enriched, how my life has been enriched, is like the growth that like knowing you has given to me and building this together. It's just, I don't think I can put it into words, even though I'm trying to.
Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, so what I feel like there's this other part about when you do something like this, it is anyone who runs a business will know it's a very isolating experience.
Yeah.
Like one, people have a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of opinions about when women do stuff.
Yes.
And I think at the beginning, thankfully, once again, you and I are pretty spiteful people. And so at the beginning, when people were sort of saying like, oh, like you're too young for this, or do you really know what you're doing? Or this is such a risk. For you and I, it was like, all right, well, we have to make this work.
Yes. We have to prove everyone wrong.
We have to be successful. But also, I think the other interesting thing is that like at no point do we plan for the business to be this large. We just wanted to get some clients for ourselves and work for ourselves. And so I think there's also something very interesting about how we have been able to adapt and be flexible. And when one of us wasn't there, the other one was there to either slow it down or to encourage.
Yes.
And I think that there is also a lot of unspoken stuff between us, right? Of how we feel towards one another, when we feel them, we talk about it a lot too. But I think that there is, although it used to be very different. It used to be like if I was freaking out, you were pretty calm. Now it's like if we're freaking out, everyone's freaking out.
I don't know. I feel like
we've been more enmeshed over time.
I feel like we've gotten back to it a little. We brought ourselves down. Honestly, 2023 was a shit show. I don't think 2023 can represent like our entire journey. Horrible. And I really do think we're getting back to like bringing ourselves down. I just think 2023 was really hard.
Yeah. But also part of 2024 is we're stepping back from our business in a few ways. When I say that, not that we're going anywhere, but we have hired some other people and there's people taking on more positions. And, Nikki is such a crucial part now of the therapy group. And so I think that's been very hard for us, but also we are realizing that like, our stress level was so bad.
And it wasn't benefiting anyone.
No, the business. No.
And so
it wasn't good.
In order for us to have a sustainable relationship with the business, we had to like put other things in place so that we could function and make sure that the business is sustainable. So anyway, we're talking a lot about like where we are now. And so
let's talk about the beginning.
I was thinking about this because I think, you know how I compartmentalize literally everything. It is
Everything.
so hard for me to like remember, but like if I can take myself back there, it's wild to think about where we were to where we are now.
Yeah. So in June 2014, we signed a lease on a shitty fucking basement
Just
office.
we made it look nice.
It was fine, but it was bad. I mean, it was once again shining a turd. And it was we didn't have enough money to buy furniture, so we rented furniture, which was the worst business decision we've ever made.
But we had no choice.
We had no choice. But I'm just in case anyone knows the interest on it. But also in that day and age, there wasn't just like Wayfair that you could get like cheap shit. Like in 2014, you had to like go to what would like I don't even know what's like Emily's furniture or like you know what I mean like a place
like a Bob's
yes
furniture.
and so we couldn't even afford that, so what we could afford though was like a monthly payment of 163. You ended up spending so much more money on that furniture than you ever would have.
Insane.
It was like a hotel lobby, like the rented furniture. And so we our rent was $550 a month for that that we split. I remember a time a check bounced that I wrote to pay the rent. That's how little money we had. And we started out charging $60.
Yeah.
And just like we made all the branding ourselves, we made the website ourselves. I mean, we did everything ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, and like we did everything ourselves up until like 2 years ago.
Yeah. When we finally were like, we can't do this anymore. Yeah. 2020, when we rebranded everything.
That's true. We started to let other people take over.
So eventually, I remember, and the day we've talked about this before, the day we got our first client, our first phone call, we were standing in your room,
Rodman
in your Rodman Street apartment. Yep.
And you said someone called and they left a message and they said, I saw your sign outside. And Emily was like, this is a sign that this is going to work.
It's going to work.
Was that in June?
No, it was definitely in July. It was probably like a month in. We didn't get any calls for the first month.
Yeah. And I was still so skeptical. So even though I was like, I'm in, I was still so skeptical. And we both had other jobs at the time too.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing to note is that like we had other jobs while we were building this, but like at the beginning too, like we were so motivated. We still are so motivated, but I'm like thinking back to like when we sat in your apartment for the entire day and made the website together and just
we made it in one day and the brochure. And we also paid so much money and we got brochures. And then we found out nobody cares about brochures. I remember going to the FedEx, like the Kinko's in Center City, and it was so much money. It was like $300. And that was so much money.
Yes.
Right. It was a huge, you know what I mean? Like it was a lot of money when you have no income coming in.
It was so much money. And
so we sat in my apartment. I remember it was a Tuesday.
Yeah. I remember trying to come up with like the name too. And it was just.
And someone told us the name was horrible. It was the Westchester Therapy Group.
Multiple people did.
Hated the name.
Hated the name. But we, despite what a lot of people were telling us, we ignored them. Big shocker.
Yeah.
And we went for it. And it was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
At least I was terrified. I don't know if you were terrified.
No, I was pretty terrified.
But
I was more worried it was going to be embarrassing, right? Like, so part of it is like when you start a business, you're putting yourself out there so much. The fear is if it fails, what does everyone think about me? Right. At the time, I was in my like early 20s. So like you really care what people think.
Yes.
So it took us about 2.5 years for the practice to be filled.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we're going to bring someone on.
No, 4. It was 4 years.
You think it was 4 years?
I know it was 4.
So it was 2018?
Yes. Or maybe the end of 2017.
It's 2017 because we had already brought people on by the time I was pregnant. I got pregnant in 2018.
So I think it was the end of 2017 is when we first started bringing people on.
So we hired someone and they worked out of this little shit office in the basement. And then finally we're like, okay, there's a tiny bit of money. We are going to move to the office in the upstairs of the same building. The same shit building. With very low rent. And we're like, okay. So you don't hire when you have no money, you don't hire anyone. So we moved all the furniture ourselves.
We say that like
painted
that's
everything
changed.
ourselves. Yeah, I know. We still do the same shit. And then slowly those people got filled up. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, like slowly this all started to work. And then a lot of really tough stuff happened, right? Which is that like the money wasn't making the way we had pre-set up. The business model was not making
It
money for as much money that was coming in. It
wasn't
wasn't sustainable.
sustainable at all. And
So
so
we had,
we had to make a really difficult decision to change the business model. That I think was one of the hardest for the first really hard transition that we had. And someone, people ask something like, what are the best decisions you made? What are the worst decisions you made? It's definitely one of the best decisions we've made. However, it was also one of the hardest because something that we had to learn over time, which was a really, I think, huge lesson, is in order to grow and in order to have a sustainable business, you have to make really difficult decisions quickly. I don't know if we made that decision quick enough,
no,
but if I could look back and say like that was one thing I could change is like making difficult decisions quicker,
yeah,
I think would be one thing.
we were so scared.
We were so
So
scared.
part of it was fear really kept us from doing a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
And
uh-huh.
and both of us, I think, tended to avoid, like when we are uncomfortable, when not anymore, but when we would be really uncomfortable with something and we would both kind of avoid it. Like we would both kind of like talk to each other about it and then not do anything about it. And I think that's a huge thing that we've changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
We were so young.
We're so
so okay, so that hard thing happened. And then once again, I think that and then in 2019, we started this podcast.
Yeah. Was it October 2019?
September, October 2019, in my bedroom. Millie was crying in her diaper in the next room with her nanny.
Yeah.
And once again, that was another thing that I was like, I think we should do. And you're like, no effing way. And I was like, please, 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 can we do this podcast? And lo and behold, it kind of worked.
Here we are.
So I think there's also a part here of every time we did something scary and huge risks for the business, the ones you see worked out, but there was other shit we tried that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's really missed when people talk about their story, or if you see something on Instagram, is that you're only seeing the things that worked out. You're not seeing all of the other shit we did that like were bad decisions.
Oh, and there was a lot.
And there's a lot, it's impossible to build a business and not make mistakes. And I think people so often are so fearful of making mistakes that they just don't end up doing anything. They don't end up taking risks. And once again, I think the only way to grow is to take risks, calculated risks, but the only way to calculate them are to look at the past and say like, well, what did I do that I could change? And so I think that our calculations have gotten a little more succinct after making a lot of the decisions that we made. But we're still going to make mistakes.
We still do make mistakes all the time.
We still do make mistakes. It's part of being human. And I think it's not about not making the mistakes. It's how quickly do you learn from them? How quickly do you pivot? And I think that's something that we've really learned is like pivoting quicker than we used to pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because now there's so many people that work for us.
Yeah.
It is, I think, a disrespect to them for us to not have grown in this way.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. The fact that we now make decisions, not just for us, but for so many other people, I think pushes us to have more difficult conversations and be better. Right. It's a shame that we couldn't do it when it was just for us.
We couldn't. We couldn't do it, just us. But no, now it's, and even we have to make hard decisions for the business. If somebody wants to, you know what I mean? We have to say to people all the time, like, listen, like, this business is livelihood for lots of folks.
Yeah.
That like we can't just make, decisions for one person. Like we have to think about the greater good of everyone. And that's really fucking hard. Because also for so long we were like, we're to work for ourselves, fuck the man. And like a few months ago, you're like, I think we are the man. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't like that.
I understand how people turn into the man, which fucking sucks. It's really like, it gives you a lot of like kind of cognitive dissonance or like this conflict, like this inner conflict of like, I'm almost forced to be the man and I don't want to be the man, you
Well, we're
know?
still the woman.
Right. We are the woman. Maybe we should change.
We'll never be the man because we're the woman. But I don't
No.
know. I think that it's we also were so much more people pleasy before.
Yeah.
And probably people liked us better then. There's a possibility our staff liked us better before.
Well, we were people. Well, that's the thing is we were, dying slowly. That I think is what happens when you're a people pleaser is that,
And probably slowly getting resentful.
and you don't want that. The only way to sustain the
Yeah.
business is to, and make sure that everyone is in a stable place, right? Like so you have to make hard decisions to make sure that the entire, it's like, it's a family. It's like when you make hard decisions for the family that makes everyone feel more secure, there's safety there, and it doesn't necessarily doesn't feel like it's benefiting like one person, but it's for the greater good. It's for like
Yeah.
being able to like make sure that there's stability there.
Yeah. It is
That's
It is crazy now though. So we do like a good amount of like group practice consulting. And it is wild that people like have this idea about how fast a practice should grow, right? I'm
yeah.
sorry. I twisted my ankle.
Oh,
And I'm now trying to
it hurt.
get a foot rest. No, it's fine. Everything is fine. But I think that we'll talk to people and one, they have, if anyone's listening and they're in private practice, it takes time. And I think that one of the bullshit things about social media is it makes it seem like it was really fast. Our experience was not very fast. A
No.
fucking decade.
Yeah. It took a really long time.
It took a really long time. So then people have this idea of what it should look like, or even like, for us, like we told ourselves, like it's going to take us like 2.5 years to fill up a caseload. Unfortunately, now people get into private practice and they think it should be like, oh, 6 months and I'm full. Like that's not really how it goes.
Also, the
Um,
the market's so saturated now. I don't think it was as saturated when we first started.
well, no, there was not at all the amount of private practices
Yeah. Like
now.
I think
Yeah, then.
COVID kind of pushed
Yeah.
everyone to this. So
Well, and I think
if
also everyone has this belief about like, oh, private practice is the end all be all. That's where every therapist wants to get. And that's really not true. And we know because we now have tons of people in private practices applying to work in our group practices too. That it's like lonely, like
yeah.
it's lonely, it's hard to figure shit out. So yeah, so when we talk about like the hardest times, it often was the hardest times in the worst decisions, even if long run they were really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is hard. Yeah.
Should we get into listener
Yes.
questions? What is something you're most proud of the other person for?
Oh, you're so, I hate to say this, but I feel like firewall up, Jen. When
Yeah.
I first met Jen, she was like a shaking chihuahua. Um,
She's not
your
wrong.
anxiety, your anxiety was so bad
Yeah.
and you felt so fragile. And it was like something would happen and it would take you out for like a week.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I was
you were also a bit sickly. It's like
yeah.
you're always sick too.
I
Like
was
physically,
always
it was all
sick.
it was very physically manifesting as
Yeah.
well.
Just
And
for
so
a while.
you have just gotten so brave and so confident and you know yourself so well now and you can speak it. And I think you've always known yourself so well,
Yeah.
but the voice wasn't there. And so what I'm most proud of you for is like your growth has just been so fucking incredible. And like what an honor it's been for me to get to like witness that.
I'm gonna cry. Just make me cry this whole time. Thank you for saying that. It's like after we did that Fiddler Club talk.
I was watching you. I was like romantically watching you during the talk.
Emmalee started crying at the end of it. And she was just like, I'm so proud of you. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think this podcast has given me a lot of confidence. I think running, you come into your own after a while. Honestly, when I think about what I'm most proud of with you, it's, I'm going to cry talking about you. It's like thinking about you in motherhood, honestly.
Mm.
I'm done. I need tissues. Um, because I know that that journey was so difficult for you. And just watching you, become the mother that you are, and you put so much into your relationship with Millie. And at the same time, you balance, like owning a business. And it's just, I see that that's not an easy thing to do. And you like, you just pour yourself into everything that you do. And so just your ability, I know that sometimes that depletes you, but like your ability to do that is incredible. And once again, I know that the journey to motherhood isn't and wasn't easy for you. So it's just so nice to watch. Yeah.
So funny because I feel like I struggled with motherhood so much. And now I feel like I'm like the happiest mother anyone
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah. It was just such a, like
It was so bad.
watching you on that roller coaster of like going from like how hard it was to
Yeah.
like now how natural it feels. And just like seeing it from an outside perspective too,
Yeah.
is it's just you just see your growth. So I don't know if you see it, but like you can see how much you've gotten through that process, and it's just has been beautiful to watch.
How
Okay,
romantic.
so beautiful. All right, can we just
It's
move
something
on?
you learn from one another. So it's gonna make you cry too.
God, I like can't
To say no.
function.
You really taught me how to say no.
Thank you. I tried. We had like a year of like saying no.
Yeah. I mean, you still sometimes have to write a text message for me.
Yes.
I do still often have to consult with you,
Because it does not
but I
come
think you
naturally for
also
you.
know. But I also think so much of your introvertedness I
Yeah.
needed,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that.
And for me, it's how to use my voice and like speak up. That is what you have taught me. When we talk about the balance in our relationship, it like
You taught me to shut up, and I taught you to speak up.
exactly.
It's really true. I mean, even with processing, right? Like if it was up to me,
Yes.
I would say yes to everything in this business. Like, you know this. Like
Yeah.
someone will ask for something and you're like, we don't have to say yes. And I'm like, we
Yes.
don't?
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. Like, and I feel like also because my processing time is so fast and I'm so
Yes.
excited about everything, I needed you to slow me down.
Yeah. I do think I mean, that's always been, we've always said that has been so helpful for both of us. Um,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
made what's made you the most happy about your journey?
I mean, it's pretty fucking dope that so many people like talk about how the podcast helped them.
Yes.
I mean, we get like fan mail of people, like I think that is so cool when people write in and say that this has like helped them, or it's helped them explain something they didn't have the words to send to their own therapist. Like or people say like this got me into therapy. Like I think it is really, really cool that has happened. But I'm also like, I love the clinicians that work for us.
Yeah.
And like, I think it is, if I could, like, I would just like hang out with them all day. So like,
Yeah.
also like what makes you happy about your journey is like, it doesn't really feel like just our journey anymore.
Yeah.
It feels a lot bigger than that.
That's that piece. It's, I think that when we went into this, like reason why we became therapists is to help people. I never pictured us helping people looking like it does now, right?
Yeah,
We
that's
went to
so
school
true.
to become therapists and work directly with clients. Our and the ways in which we have expanded that. And it's now, okay, we help people through the podcast and we help our clinicians, we help support them, help other people. So I don't think our journey has necessarily looked like how I had pictured it, right? This isn't how I pictured helping people, but the fact that there are other avenues to being able to support people and help people, like that, I think is the coolest thing. There's been a lot of ups and downs to get to this place, but like that, when I think about it in like the bigger picture of things, like the fact that we get to reach so many people makes me really happy.
Yeah. What surprises you the most about how you've grown or changed as women and as therapist?
I mean, my ability to trust myself, I
Mm,
think is the biggest thing for me. Just, I don't know if it surprises me. I never really thought like, what am I going to be like, when I'm like this, but I think that that's the biggest change. And I think that is how I went from a shaking chihuahua to where I am now. Kind of dog am I now, would you say?
oh, like beautiful Murphy, like
Oh,
Prince Charming.
except my head's not that big.
Stable. Yeah, I know. Like stable and calm
Yes.
and he demand barks when he needs something. So like,
Yes. Oof,
yeah,
God. Ooh, I love that. I'm Murphy. I would love to be Murphy. But
what a
yeah,
life. Yeah.
what a life. But that's what I would say is that's the thing I think maybe surprises me is like my ability to really trust myself and my decisions because I did
Yeah.
not have that for a while.
I mean, as a therapist, I'm so drastically a different therapist than 10 years ago, right? Like
Same.
coming out of grad school, I'm like, I'm neutral all the time and blah, blah, blah. Now I'm like, that's fucking wrong, bitch. Like, like, he's a dick. Like, I am so much more able to be myself and trust my intuition and still use all of my clinical work and do all of my clinical work. But me as a therapist is a very, very different person as how I am now. Um, but it's funny. I think when we first started the business, like we were so desperate and we had no money and no clients. So we just said yes to anything. Like, you want to hang out? Yes. Like, blah, blah, blah. So I think how I've grown is I didn't realize that boundaries could also create growth. I thought I
Yes.
had to have a lack of boundaries for any business to build. And maybe you
Yes.
do at the beginning. It's hard to say, right? Like, the thing is that, like, I talked about this in therapist. I was like talking about this in therapy about how like, oh, like I hate being a people pleaser, blah, blah, blah. And my therapist was like, well, wait a second. Like, it's really worked for you though.
Yeah, it has.
Like, it has like really worked. It really worked to say yes to everything. It really worked to be a people pleaser. Um, those things did work to a point.
I also
And for
think
me, that
there's,
point was motherhood.
yeah. And that's a, like, I think that when things change in your life, like as the business grew or like you became a mother, that the things that were once working for us were no longer working, right? Like where being a people pleaser, saying yes to everything worked when we were in our early 20s. Like we had all the time in the world.
Yeah.
We had, there was no one depending on us. And we were maybe taking those same skills, even though our lives were changing without adapting to that. And now the thing that actually allows us to connect better with the business is having boundaries in other ways.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
before, being connected to the business meant we say yes to absolutely everything. We, talk to everyone. And now if we do that, we are so burnt out and disconnected from the business. So like boundaries actually give us the ability to connect more with
Yeah.
ourselves so that we can really run the business.
Yeah.
Whew.
Looking back, what are some things you did that built your confidence professionally? I think getting guidance and listening to other people.
Yes.
I think that having the ability to be humble and know that you don't know everything and that there are other people you can learn from and that can teach you, I think was huge
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Um, I think the thing that's built the most confidence is taking risks, making mistakes, and learning from them. Is
Yeah.
that the only way to grow? And I see this now is to actually take risks and
Yeah.
to do things that are out of your comfort zone.
I
And
mean,
I
I
know
do.
it's just like such a cliche thing that people say, but it's so true.
I do think really back to like being humble and humility. There is going to be shit that fails. And we're all so like worried about things failing, but like things will fail in your business and in your practice. There are times that I think back to sessions I've had that I'm like, just like, Jesus, that was not a good session.
Yeah.
Or like, I really wish I handled this differently. Right. Like, so I think the ability to look at yourself and as opposed to the shame, look at it as like, wow, I needed to learn this lesson and that
Yes.
doesn't feel good and how I want to do differently next time.
Yes, 100%. And the
Uh,
only way to do that too is like, okay, I'm going to do something that feels uncomfortable for me,
yeah.
right? I'm thinking even about the podcast, obviously, because it was very uncomfortable for me.
So, okay, I really am obsessed with this question, so we have to do it.
Yeah, go.
For all the haters, somebody said, top 3 moments of vindication throughout your successful business journey. For all the haters.
I think just having a business.
Yeah, it didn't fail.
Fact that we're still here.
I think the reality is when you hit a certain point or you do something, you bring up shit for other people. So there's been a lot of people that are have a lot of feelings around our success. I think for me, it was mainly male professors.
Yeah.
It was mainly like male older colleagues that had a lot to fucking say.
Yes.
And I love that this has worked out so well. And, what can they say now? Oh, they're so annoying. They have a podcast. I don't fucking care. Right?
Yeah. I honestly think so interesting that's coming to my mind is that like my biggest hater was maybe myself.
Ooh.
Like the person who was telling me that I don't think that I can do this was myself for a really long time.
Yeah.
And so I think that, being able to prove to myself that I can do this and we can do this, I think was one of the biggest moments and that, to take it back to the other questions, really built my confidence is to prove my inner critic wrong. The thing that, when we would have a conversation and I would be like, "Ooh, I don't know. The thing that held me back over and over and over again, I think that was my biggest hater is like the inner critic that said, you can't do this. And now I have proven that inner critic wrong. I don't know where that inner critic is.
Okay, so top 3 moments for me. Top 3 moments of vindication. Hanging our sign in Rittenhouse Square.
Oof.
Redoing an entire fucking building.
Yeah.
And having it be like a pretty prominent space in Westchester. The fact that we have a huge podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, right? We're over 2 million downloads. We're getting 20,000 a week. I would say also like when we started getting like over 200 intakes a month, that was pretty dope. Right.
Yes.
I really love that time, because, we went from like celebrating over 1 and now we rock like 200 a month, like over 200 a month. But the first time we ever hit 200 was a really big deal.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 moments?
Trying to think of earlier ones too. Because it felt like it, I think honestly, getting through COVID.
Oh God.
That was pretty
Scary.
terrifying. Getting through COVID, I think, was really terrifying because we had no idea what that was going to look like. So that was a big one. I don't know. I've compartmentalized literally everything. I think a lot of what you said, I think a lot of the transitions that have happened, like getting through hard times.
Okay. And we're going to run through a few of these. Advice for therapy entrepreneurs leaving their comfy agency job. Be friends with people. Take fucking headshots. Please do not put a selfie on your website. I realize at the beginning, you don't have a lot of money. Dear God, still please have a nice website. It really does matter more than you think it does.
Yeah.
You can buy branding kits off of Etsy. You do not need to pay someone a gajillion dollars.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit does matter. But be friends with people, meet other therapists, meet other professionals, go to wellness places. Don't just support yourself. Think about like referring to other people. Community in this field matters. And when you leave any type of job, do not burn the bridge.
Yes. We always say community over competition. And it's
Yeah.
so easy when you're feeling insecure because you're first starting out. And listen, you're going to feel insecure when you're first starting out. It's just part of the process. It's easy to wall off to other people because you feel like, oh, I'm in competition with that person. Why would I want to reach out to them?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things I think that we've learned is to connect with other practice owners and to be connected to other therapists is that, and it's so helpful to be connected to other people in this field. Um, because you learn that everyone has the same challenges. Like everyone goes through kind of similar processes. And um, so community over competition, I think, is big. I think another thing is this takes time. Like being patient, I think, is really important. Um, and taking risks. I know I'm a broken record with that, but like put yourself out there. I know that that's not always easy, but there's maybe a little voice telling you, oh, I can't do this. That's not my personality. You actually can do those things. You just haven't done them yet.
Yeah.
And the voice that's telling you you can't, I want you to talk back to the voice and say, oh, I actually just haven't done it. And I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable with it. And that's where this is coming from.
Advice for a therapist just beginning after your 10 years of amazing experience.
Oh,
I have
learn.
one for learn. What mine was going to say is that, like, even if you go to a place where they provide you with supervision and your supervisor sucks, pay for outside supervision, figure out a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Good supervision matters. Um, and so I think that's something to keep in mind is that, like, keep learning. I know when you leave grad school, you are slightly burnt out. Take a month off, read some like fiction novels, and then get your fucking ass to work. So
Yeah.
like keep learning, keep growing stuff, and like listen to people ahead of you. You know, like people have good advice, but a lot of times when you're starting out, you're like a little bit stubborn in your shit. And so like listen to what some other people had to say. And I think one of the things we were good at is once again, we were always had like big humility and we're very humble.
Yeah.
And we would take people, one of the things we did at the beginning was we would find other local therapists and then ask to take them to coffee and just like learn from them.
Yeah.
Anything. And a lot of stuff they said didn't make any sense for us, but it doesn't matter. You take what works, you leave the rest.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think whether you're a new therapist or, you've been in the field forever long, there's always more to learn. Um, and keeping an open mind, I think, going along with the insecurity bit of like when you start out new in anything, like you feel like such an imposter and think about the way in which you're dealing with your imposter syndrome. I think sometimes because we feel shame around feeling like an imposter and like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to help this person, we wall ourselves off to not learning more. So know that even if you just, got through grad school and you were top of your class, there is so much to learn in this field. It is a never ending process. And I know for a lot of people that can feel overwhelming. Like you're not going to learn it all in 1 year. You're not going to learn it all in 5 years. Give yourself time, see what connects to you, see what your clients are coming in with. Sometimes your clients will bring you things and you're like, okay, there's like pieces of this that maybe I need to educate myself on. So, listen to yourself, right? If there is an area that you're like, oh, I'm like feeling like an imposter, move with that and learn and teach yourself, okay, well, what is it that I can do to not feel like an imposter in this way, that I can learn more? And that's okay that you feel that way. There's so much in this field to learn, to look at things from different angles. So yeah, I think along the same vein is be open to continuing that process.
All right, want to do one last more.
Oh my God, time is
I know,
flying.
I know. Um okay, hold on. What made the biggest difference towards getting the hang of owning a private practice? getting help. Every time we had a big transition, we had outside help to do it. So
Yeah.
whether that was someone guided us about like the last effort, whether that's we reached out to a lawyer to help us with compliance stuff, right? Like outside help matters. And so I think the biggest difference about getting a hang of it was like listening to other people.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to just keep saying it. I think humility. You have to be
Yeah.
able to say, I'm not getting any intakes. You have to be able to say to yourself, this is not working. What I'm doing is not fucking working. My intakes are down. It's like, you know, so many therapists start out and they put themselves on Psychology Today, and that's all they do. And then they
Yeah.
join Facebook groups. That does not get you clients. I'm sorry. Psychology Today may get you clients. Well, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to end up in the last page of that fucking list. It doesn't get updated. Everyone's always like, Psychology Today, tell me how it works after 6 months. It doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And so you need to figure out other ways to get referrals, and having humility matters. You need to be able to admit to yourself, what I'm doing is not working. How do I pivot?
I think with that too, I think having each other has been one of the biggest things that have helped us get the hang of private practice, because we always have someone to lean on and bounce ideas off of. And so if you're in private practice by yourself, that's where other supports come in. That's where connection and community comes in. But we always say, we don't know how we would do this alone, because we talk through so much and we come to, it's just like we're constantly brainstorming,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been doing that for years. And so I think having each other has been one of the greatest things to being able to build the therapy group.
So let's do a Dear Em and Jen, and then we have to end.
Yes.
Dear Em and Jen, I'm so excited to listen to your 10-year episode. Was there anything that seemed like a really great idea and turned out not to be, or vice versa?
Yeah.
A lot of it.
So much. So many things. There's things we've spent money on that didn't end up getting us anything. There's things we said yes to that we didn't get anything from. I mean,
we spent $0 setting up this podcast, and it's been one of the best fucking things we've ever done.
Right.
And we thought it was going to be just a stupid thing we did 5 episodes with and didn't go anywhere. And then there was times where we invested a bunch of money into shit and it blew up.
Yes. And so there are so many things that we have done that we thought would be a good idea. And we throw out ideas all the time.
We try everything.
The time. We try everything. I will be in the shower washing my hair, coming up with a new idea. And I'll text Emmalee and be like, this might be the dumbest idea ever, but I'm still going to say it. Right? Like, we probably say that to each other once a week.
Yeah. I think, our e-course did very well and we made good money, but like what you have to pay to host it on a thing and to make it accessible, I don't think e-courses are worth it.
At least if you're only doing one. If
you're only doing one, if you're going to keep paying for it and keep turning them out, it's one thing. But what you have to pay for the hosting of it, I did not find to be productive.
It was a lot of work for
us. A lot of
with
work.
Everything
so
else.
it did really well, and I'm glad people benefited from it. But I would not do an e-course again.
Yeah, something that's a perfect example of like, this is a great idea, but you don't know until you do it. You don't know how much work it's going to take. You don't know the fact that you have to keep hosting it on a site. Like, it's just. We wasted a lot of money afterwards holding on to that. And so, there's going to be a bunch of decisions that you make that were not a good idea. And, my husband is always like, I told you so. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I need to make this decision.
Did he think the podcast would do well?
No. See, that's why it's like, it can't
50-50, baby.
50-50, but,
I think people had when we started the podcast, a lot of people had a lot of judgments.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm gonna if we end here, this is what I'm gonna say is like the biggest thing, and maybe this comes with age, is that stopped caring about people's judgments. That has allowed us to take risks and put ourselves out there in ways that feel authentic to us. and also help build the business. And I think that that's one of the biggest transitions that we've made from our early 20s into our 30s of I care way more about supporting the business and making sure that our clinicians feel supported, have the intakes they need than other people's outside judgment. And listen, we don't get a ton of judgment now. It's possible no one's judging us and we just assume that there's outside judgment.
Well, no, but people just talk shit behind your back, and that's totally fine for me.
Yeah, totally fine with that because the most important thing for us is supporting the business. After 10 years, we have a 10-year-old baby. We got to make sure that baby thrives. I mean, I guess it's not a baby anymore, right? Then it's
It's preteen, and
I'm
preteens get cranky, so now it's on to the next one.
So, listen, we in another 10 years, we're going to be doing another episode. Let's end on that. Where do you think we'll be in 10 years?
Oh god. I hope less burnt out. I hope we've more balance in 10 years.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Right? I will say this. It's so crazy it's been 10 years, and then it's also crazy it's only been 10 years because I feel like we have lived, breathed the therapy for the past decade. So I would love to be a little bit more balanced, and I would love to see our clinicians take on more roles. I would love to see us step back a little bit and give the next generation of therapists some time to get in. I'd love if we figured out ways to support other therapists more and more. In the next 10 years, I don't know. I don't think I could even imagine.
I can't either. We said we could never imagine where we
Yes.
would be now. So it's almost impossible to imagine where we'll be in 10 years. But what we do know is we are so appreciative of where we are and the journey with the ups and downs, appreciative of that. And thank you for listening and being on the journey with us. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Shrink Chicks.
We'll see you back here next week for another session.
In the meantime, if you want a question answered or a topic discussed, follow us on Instagram at ShrinkChicks. And if you're looking to get connected with a therapist like us to start or continue your therapeutic journey, visit thetherapygroup.com. Just fill out a contact form on our website, and we will personally match you with one of our amazing therapists. And for all of our therapists and group practice owners out there, we also offer group practice consulting.
And if you're looking to support yourself further and support our show, check out our amazing merch options at shrinkchicks.com/merch and our Know Yourself, Grow Yourself journal on Amazon. Also, if you'd be so kind, we'd love a rating review and for you to share with a friend or an enemy or a mother-in-law, honestly, whoever needs it, so that we can keep reaching more people on our mission to bring mental health topics to your ears every week.
Thanks for being here with us. And don't forget to grow yourself. You got to know yourself.